I'll take one since you're here. Thanks, man.
Good.
Scott,
Roland and Bob, y'all ready?
Scott has a really nice one.
Slide that up out of the way.
All right. Roland, y'all ready? Okay, it is 8:30, and I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody to the City of San Angelo Development Corporation meeting for September the 24th, 2014. Before we get started, I would like to ask Mr. Barrio to lead us in a word of prayer.
Certainly. If you would bow with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to live in this fine city. Thank you for blessing us recently with rain. We do wish for more. We pray for more. We know that you will provide exactly what we need. Lord, look over this panel this morning. Have us to evaluate every decision that needs to be made wisely, for this is the taxpayers' money and ultimately your money, and we want to be good stewards of that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. All right, I will move to public comment. The board takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken as appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the board at this time. The board may request an item be placed on future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. Is there any public comment? Does not appear to be any. We will move to the consent agenda. I need a motion for consent agenda approval.
I will make that motion.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve items on the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Regular agenda. Not here. Okay, I'm gonna skip to item number 4. Tina, yeah, she is here. Okay. Item number 4 is consideration of approving the allocation of $53,605.27 for costs incurred in connection with the West Texas Water Partnership in accordance with an interlocal agreement among the cities of San Angelo, Midland, and Abilene. Miss Tina Bunnell, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
How are you
Good
today?
morning.
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
So as you know, this is seeking reimbursement for payment for the West Texas Water Partnership as directed by the City Council. The amount is there in the agenda. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them if I can.
Everybody had a chance to review that in your packet.
I'll make a motion, we go ahead and approve.
All right, motion by Mr. Villarreal, second by Mr. Hebert. Any further discussion? Public comment? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, next item, consideration of approving necessary corporation disbursements and authorization of designated board members to sign related corporation checks. Mr. Rowan Pena.
Sorry, we had a lot of action happening there as we started. You did approve the consent agenda, correct?
Consent agenda,
Yes.
consent agenda is approved, yes.
Okay.
Went by real fast.
No grass growing under these feet.
Gotta pay attention.
Excellent. Normally, what we've done is we deviated from our normal process, specifically because of the West Texas partnership item that you just approved. Normally, that is part of your disbursements that you approve. We normally provide that in the consent. For the sake of transparency to the public and to the board, and since it's a significant item, we realize it's a ballot item and it's already been approved by the voters, but we just felt it was important to not be presumptuous, allow that to be voted on by the board, and then allow you to approve the disbursement. So that item is included in the disbursement. It just deviates from the normal process. But that's the reason for why you see the difference in our process today. So pretty routine. You have the items allocated for economic development, routine items under $1,000, and then the ballot items.
All right, so we just need a approval of the corporation checks as presented in our packets, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I will make that motion.
All right, motion by Mr. Barrios, second by Mr. Hebert. Any further comment? Public comment? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, presentation regarding check signing and approvals in disbursement process. Mr. Pena and Ms. Bunnell again.
The normal disbursement process, for the benefit of the public, is disbursements are approved by the board, and normally we have the checks ready for the board members to sign at the end of the meeting. And in the spirit of the continuation of process improvements, we're proposing a change in that process, mainly in the manner that we sign those checks. We've identified that is a risk, and so staff is recommending a modification. You will continue to approve the disbursements. However, the checks will be signed administratively. That'll prevent us from, keeping those checks in transit to the chambers and so forth. It is another measure of financial control and reduces risk, in our opinion. It really adheres to the disbursement policy. There's no change in the disbursement policy. It's just a matter of how we sign those checks. Board members still have the ability to sign those checks. However, we just wanted to instill some preventative measures there, and if the board is okay with that, we'll incorporate that process beginning next month.
And that's not necessarily an action item, that's just a routine information.
Right. I mean, we just didn't want to proceed with the process without providing the why, and so we want you to understand why we're going to be doing that in the future.
You guys good with that?
Good with that.
Comfortable?
Good. All right, we're going to move on, because I saw Rebecca came in. Presentation and consideration of approving the August 2014 financial statements and any action in connection thereto. Ms. Rebecca Timbunga, good morning.
Okay, for the August financials, if you take a look on page 1, we have the executive summary. Your unreserved fund balance for the economic development side is a little over $7 million. For the ballot side, it's over $4 million. Sales tax for the month of August, we received $907,000. We are up 16.5%. Year to date, we are in excess of $988,000. On page 2, you have that expenditures by major category graphs. And then on page 3 is where the economic development starts. You have your balance sheet with your cash and investments of $8.8 million, our sales tax receivable of $373,000, and your fixed assets at $3.3 million. For the fund equity side, we have that designation for the economic development projects of $2.1 million, and we'll look at that breakout on page 5. We have the reservation for the fixed assets of $3.3 million, bringing your fund balance to that $7 million for the economic development side. On page 4, we have the revenue and expense report. Just our routine sales tax revenue. We did collect a little bit of BRC lease income, bringing your total revenues to $239,000. And on the expenditures, we did have a payment for that compliance audit of $4,000. And on that business and retention and expansion program, that was for the CVD, the $5,000, as well as some CVCD expenses of $18,000. We were revenue over expenses of $188,000. On page 5 gives you that breakout for those economic development projects. As you can see, in August, we went ahead and added that air service marketing for $79,000 and took away the Grand Court, bringing that total commitment for us to the $2.1 million. On page 6, we have the balance sheet for the ballot side. We have our cash and investments at $3.6 million. Our sales tax receivable is $961,000. And on the equity side, we have the affordable housing designation of $62,000 and a designation for debt service of $564,000, bringing that ballot side to the unreserved fund balance of $4 million. I do want to make note that, sales tax has been performing very well, and we do have a surplus of those funds. So this would be a great opportunity for us to go ahead and use that unreserved cash for those ballot items so we can satisfy our ballot And instead of us going through the process of issuing debt. So in September, you will see a designation for those ballot projects of $3.3 million. On page 7, we have the revenue and expense report for the ballot side. On our revenues, our sales tax totaling to $613,000. And on our expenditures, we did make a payment for affordable housing admin fee of $30,000, as well as the reclaimed water alternatives of $11,000. We were revenue over expenses of $571,000. On page 8, we have the breakout of the ballot projects. As you can see, we still have a payment which we'll be making today for that sports facility maintenance of $131,000, and our affordable housing coming down to $62,000. Total commitment for ballot is $194,000. Pages 9 through 12 give you that transaction detail by account, and then the voter approved projects. The only activity this month was for the Concho River on page 19.
Anybody have any questions for Rebecca?
Just going back to what you said on the recommendation to use the surplus for the ballot.
Yes, we that unreserved fund balance that we have of $4 million, there are a few projects that are on the ballot that we need to go ahead and satisfy. So we're going to go ahead and use that unreserved cash instead of issuing debt. And I'll go ahead and let Tina speak about that.
Oh, well, I don't have much more to say about it. It's still going to be there in the fund balance. It's just that we're going to designate it to show that we actually have that amount covered that's already committed to specific projects. So it'll just show it as the designation within the fund balance. And then you know that any fund balance that's left after that is just free. And we're
For projects, okay. So you're
we're
not
spared from
actually
issuing debt for that amount.
paying
so-
off the
Covered
debt. You're just-
We haven't,
you're
I
just-
don't think, some of those projects have even started. It's
Started.
just showing that we have the money there to cover it already, so.
That's great.
Just wanted to
Any questions?
have it clear in my mind.
All right. Need a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Villarreal, second by Mr. Hebert. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, presentation and discussion of possible action regarding monthly financial statement presentations to the board. Mr. Pena.
This is another item that we've been discussing in terms of streamlining and improving our processes. This is a regular item, the monthly financials that are presented to you on a monthly basis. There's no requirement under the bylaws that requires you to approve the financials. So we have just an observation notice that there are limited amount of questions with regard to the financial presentation, and we wanted to get your feedback and your input in terms of placing the financials on the consent. If that is a desire of the board, you can always pull them out of consent if you want to have further discussion, or you can keep the financial presentation on the regular agenda as historical. So it is just basically for your consideration. We really don't have a preference, but it is more of a question and observation that we've noticed in our discussions with finance, and thought, well, maybe it's time that we bring that forth and allow the board to have that discussion and get your thoughts about that.
I will make a comment that I'm supportive of that. You know, I know that whenever we get our packets, that's probably one of the first things that I look at as I go looking through those just to see where we are. You know, I think we all have that opportunity, you know, when we review these before this meeting, and very rarely are there any questions that get lobbied, you know, and if there is one, we can always pull it out like you said. So, I mean, I think that it's definitely worthy of consideration, especially from a time standpoint.
I personally feel that it's not so much for me or for the board. I think it's more for the public. I think it keeps the public informed on just the finances that's taking place, and that's what I like about this part of the report. You know, and if I miss something, you know, we do bring it up, but I like it for the fact that I know it takes time to away from what other duties that they have, but I think it's important to keep the public informed and gives them the public an opportunity to be informed on the finances of the Economic Development Corporation.
I'm okay as a board member going to the consent agenda format. My request would be if there's something that stands out to staff that you all say, I would request that you bring those items forward and identify those for the same reason Tony just stated, for information for the public as much as anything. But they are quite routine, so I'm okay with taking them to the consent agenda.
I agree with Tommy.
I agree with Tommy.
You're eloquent, sir.
That means somebody not thinking. And it may be me.
I'm quiet
But
on
you
this
said it well.
Because these guys are actually reflecting my mentality. I believe it's very important that we keep the public informed. This is, after all, their money. We have been charged to be good stewards with this money, and I think they have a right to know, not just purely an informative thing. I think they actually have a right to know what we do with their money. So I agree, 100%.
And as finance staff, I just want to say, we're happy to do whatever. This was actually an idea that Roland brought to us. We're happy to do it every single month. We're happy to bring those statements quarterly, or to just bring it as we see fit, as you said, if there's something unusual. So we are completely okay with doing whatever the board desires. So just wanted to make that.
I would lean more towards a quarterly statement because I know how much effort goes into a statement. And a monthly basis would possibly overwhelm the staff.
Well, we would still prepare the statements monthly, but we would just compile them on a quarterly basis to present in the open forum. So. And so you would still see those statements monthly in your packets if you were to go to that option. And then on a quarterly basis, we would present it for the public's view.
Tina, do those statements also go to council every month?
No. No, yeah, I think they go on a Friday packet. Sorry.
So, but they do go to council.
They don't go
anyway, so-
to city council meetings, but they do go to them in a Friday packet.
Thank you.
And if they are included in our packet, they are available online to the general public.
I do like that was another a piece of the discussion that we did talk about perhaps a quarterly presentation as opposed to a monthly presentation to help alleviate, kind of what we talked about, the workload, but more importantly, to be more transparent and make that available for the public. Rebecca does a great job, so we know that, and I think she'll be ready in the event that you want to pull something out of the consent. But if you're comfortable with that, we'll move forward toward a quarterly presentation, and she's available in the event that you have any questions and you want to pull it from the consent.
What do you think, Tony?
That'll work.
You okay? Excellent.
Do we need to take
All right, do we need to have a vote on that or just roll with it?
It's an administrative change. It's
Yeah.
not related to you.
Administrative change, all right, good enough. All right,
We like that.
moving on. Updates by staff regarding goal matrices.
This is another item that you may want to see on the consent as well. I am trying to gauge your preference on this. We did not have an opportunity to make a presentation during our second quarter, and so I've combined second and third quarter. But I wanted you to see, because of the documentation and what we've accomplished, I wanted you to see what's transpired in the last 2 quarters. More importantly for us is being able to work with the partners and stay abreast of the priority goals that we determined in our board workshop with the partners. You can see that we've had a lot of good progress. One of the priorities was being more business friendly, and I wanted to, and that's item E22D. I wanted you to see that. I know that Patrick and his team have been working really hard to help streamline and become more business friendly in their process, and they've made a lot of improvements. You can see some of the activities that they've had, and I've asked him to come before the board because we know that that's important in terms of economic development and doing business with the companies, and so we've documented a lot of their accomplishments as well. And for us, administratively, it's keeping up with the activities and who's the lead per goal, and capturing the status. So I can highlight just a few of these. The ones that don't have a status, though, we don't have an update, but we are working towards determining what the next steps are. As we talked about in the past, if there are goals here that are not able to be accomplished or that the lead is unable to fulfill, then we'll have to readjust, and it may be that we may have to drop our goal. But the important thing is that we're able to have realistic goals that we can accomplish. In terms of the organizational priorities, we've also been very busy there. Within the organization, we worked on the core services. As you can tell, we've worked with several companies this month, and we've had some successes. Some of I think you've seen some of my emails. At times, our work is a lot more on the facilitation and behind the scenes at times, and some of these companies want to remain silent. They want to establish themselves here without any special attentions to them, and we're adhering to that. Our goal is to help facilitate the expansion of these businesses, the location of these businesses, and the creation of those jobs, and help it become a good process for them. So we've had some really good activity during the course of the month, and I will tell you that we're working very closely with the partners. I'm very very proud of the work that we've been doing together. We work real closely. We huddle up very quickly. We react very quickly if we have a crisis or a perceived crisis, as you saw with regard to Sitel and how we reacted in that process. But we've been working very closely together, and I'm very pleased with the way that is going. We're incorporating some of those state agency partners, and that's going really, really well. I'm also very proud of the fact that we're getting a lot of interaction with the board. Y'all have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of creativity, and we welcome all those phone calls that you're providing to us. And so I'm very pleased with the way things are going. This only outlines what's been happening in terms of within the organization, as well as our goals with the partners. And I'm open to any questions that you may have. But as you can tell, we've been pretty active the last 2 quarters. I have not captured and haven't forgotten what transpired before I got here, and hopefully at the end of the year we'll capture that as well, because I know that was important work that was done. Case hole solutions, for example. I mean, that's I don't know that the board or the community realized what kind of success that was going to be. And we went to the breaking or the ribbon cutting, and they invited a lot of dignitaries, but what they're telling us is they're going to be hiring more employees there, and so it's a lot more successful than we had imagined, I think. So we have a lot of activity happening right now in terms of inquiries at the industrial park. We have a lot of inquiries in terms of companies wanting to locate here, and so we're seeing a lot of that. Obviously, a big portion of that is on the energy side. But we are, I would say that we have a good diversity of inquiries that's happening now. I'm going to let, as soon as Councilwoman Farmer gets up here, I'm going to let her talk more about the Ports to Plains and the Texas Pacific Coast trip. I think those are important. Next month, we're going to have Lou and the consultant come in and report not only on the progress of the airport, but also on the progress of the air service marketing plan. With that, I'll open it up for any questions you may have.
You mentioned working with Patrick at Development Services. Are all the departments with that would have a need to know within the city aware of the BREP initiative that we're going to kick off October 1st, so that, and will any specific project that would fall under the BREP initiative be identified as such for their benefit, so that, you know, there can maybe be a little more tender loving care provided, or a little heightened attention, so that, you know, that those can get the due consideration that we would hope that they would?
Knowing Patrick, he's usually here, but knowing Patrick, and at least in my observation of how he operates, he stays very close in contact with all his departments. It would surprise me if they weren't aware of what we have, what we're pursuing, this new development. You may remember that in the development of the incentive policy, I met with the internal stakeholders, some of the internal departments, finance, development services. Patrick was there, budget. I can't remember who else was there, but I took their input. Some of the input, Patrick provided some good input, and we incorporated that into that incentive policy. I will assure you that as these BREP projects are moving forward, and we're going to utilize that program, and if it has a touch point with the development services, we're going to make it known that this is a BREP project. So I will assure you that that'll be part of the process.
I just think that's important, simply because, you know, we've talked about doing our best and everybody doing their best to be more business friendly. Those are our local businesses that will be involved, obviously, in BREP. So it seems to me that everybody should at least be aware, when it is a BREP project, that it is, you know, falling under that program, and that you know, again, I'm sure everybody tries to be business friendly, but just make everybody aware that, you know, this is one of those local businesses that is we're working with.
I know that Patrick has done some tweaking to the DRC, but in that process, that's an early on first initial contact with a lot of those internal departments. In that process, we've made it a point to bring to light that is a project that has come through our process, and that we've been working with the company. So we've made it a point as an advocate for business and economic development in that process. So we're doing that now. You may not be aware of it, but we are doing that piece of it now.
Other questions? All right. Yes, ma'am.
Sue Mims, WTOS. Just a couple of comments on a couple of the items, like the 33A, which concerns support for Shannon and other medical areas, and I'm wondering if other entities such as Esperanza Clinic and West Texas Guidance and Counseling Center might also be included in consideration there. For example, we've learned that in the past year, there's been really a substantial increase in the number of younger patients coming to West Texas Guidance and Counseling, and that they have a real staffing problem that is sometimes not very obvious to the public. And then regarding item 14, or something in general, as an old country girl, I must comment that agricultural activities in the area have a substantial contribution to the economy of San Angelo. And so wondering, item 14 might be an area where some explicit reference to agriculture might be included. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Addressing 33A, I believe that our intent with that one is, I believe the exact wording is regional. It's Shannon Community Baptist Memorial and other regional healthcare facilities with need and training programs and workforce recruitment, which we're doing with workforce development. So that would be, our intent is to encompass. I mean, we can't name everybody, but we're definitely looking for everybody, looking to help everybody with that.
We evaluate these goals, or we touch on them during our ED partner meetings as well, and so we'll touch base on that. I know Mike is sitting behind me, but we'll make sure that we're incorporating all those other healthcare facilities, and then agriculture, as Sue mentioned, it's one of our targeted industries. And I totally agree with her. I was looking at a report yesterday that shows that ag provides a significant amount in terms of their services contribution to the sales tax revenues. So that's important to us, and we make sure that we give that the proper attention it needs. With that,
all right,
we can move on.
We're going to move back to item number 2, which is presentation and update regarding the recent Texas Pacifico El Chepe Mexico Business and Trade Relations trip, and we have Miss Charlotte Farmer with us today. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I'm Charlotte Farmer, and I did participate in the recent Texas Pacifico trip, and I believe it was a complete success, and I hope that you're equally as proud of our representative, Mr. Pena, as I am. I got to see him in action and got to see him at work, and I'm quite impressed with his ability and his communication skills with folks. And I want to add that his wife is equally as capable, and I truly believe that she was a bigger hit than he was.
That is not a shock.
We should definitely make her our ambassador over there and pay for her expenses, because she was an added plus, and very charming, very lovely, and was a big hit. But down to some facts, it was a large group. There were 26 attendees as invited guests, and Roland and I and Mrs. Pena were just 3 of those, but there were 26 of us, and it was quite informative. Got the opportunity on that trip to visit with current people that are listing businesses coming to San Angelo, and some that are coming to San Angelo. I want to give you some stats that I found out on this trip, just in case that you didn't know. I want to share with you that tank cars in the railroad industry, freight cars, tank cars, the flatbed cars that haul what's out there, what is coming out there, and what is going through our area that didn't go before. Did you know that it costs, in leasing fees, $1,300 a month to lease a tank car? And that is for the oil that is transferred. And the freight is $600 a month and $400 a month for all the other cars. What's the current price is to lease? And you probably want to know why those are relative. The upkeep on those for someone who buys a tank car is only anywhere from $10 to $20 a month. And so there are companies out there who are jumping on and they're buying a tank car costs between $150,000 and $155,000, depending on where you buy it. That's per car. At the manufacturers, the number that is being produced right now is 77,000 cars per year. The tank cars that are being produced today will not roll out of the assembly line until summer of July 2016. So there is a large demand that is going on out there, and for your information, I got this information from two companies that are in the business that are out there and looking for cars right now. Depending on the price of oil, each tank car that is filled carries between $1.5 and $3 million in value. Each sand car that carries a load of sand is worth $70,000. So it's a quite lucrative business that is going on. There are companies that lease the vehicles, and there are companies out there that build the vehicles, and I'm calling the cars, the railroad cars, vehicles. I don't know what else to call them. But I find it interesting that people in Iowa, people in Nebraska, want to come to San Angelo and open up their shops. They feel like that our current boom is here to stay. So if that is the case, then we've got the rail industry in Texas Pacifico that is here doing business. Glad to have them here and their participation. You know, we all know their numbers. Their cars increased from about 3,000 a day to over 33,000, a year, that are going through San Angelo. Correct me if I'm wrong at any of my figures, Roland. Looking at my notes that I stood up and traveled down the railroad going, but it is quite impressive. The number of people that they employ at their switching stations, their yard stations, it is considerable, gentlemen. So I'm not saying just oil related, it's a domino effect. I found this to be the true case, that it brings in office workers, payroll workers, yard workers, watchmen, all kinds of workers that the industry is bringing in. So I do believe it was a very worthy trip, well worth our time, even the blister on the back of my heel from walking, but at least I didn't do any zip lining. But it was worth the mad rush getting over there. Our flight from here was canceled that morning, I found out, due to mechanical problems. It wasn't the weather as we thought it was, rain, but it was due to mechanical problems. I don't know if it's in the purview of this council to look at to see if we can have a plane on standby out there, because there were an awful lot of San Angelo folks that drove to Abilene at 3 in the morning to catch that plane. And if you've heard me complain about Roland calling me at 7 a.m. on the morning, try 3 a.m. to say, we've got to be in Abilene. So he was on top of the trip, very, very worthy ambassador as his wife to the trip, and meeting the folks and making connections. And it wasn't just our partners to the south that we made connections with. As I stated, there were business people from Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Iowa, and Fort Worth and Dallas that were on this trip. So that was the Port to Plains, and other than getting to dance with Zorro, which is another story, but I did get to dance with Zorro.
I think we need to report on that.
Well, you know, I was the last one that he chose, but it was an evening, a dinner evening, and we were treated with a visit by Zorro and his companion.
We applaud you.
Thank you, thank you. But other than that, the trip is gorgeous. It's beautiful. No problems, no delays. The people were, as always, were just gracious, and a very proud history and bunch to be around, as well as the communities that we went through. Did get to see a lot of their farming community, which I was in the grocery store yesterday, and has been my habit for a couple of years now. I go through and pick up I'm looking at every piece of produce, to the point that someone came up and asked me, was there something wrong with that avocado? And I said, no, I just wanted to know where it was from. And I got to where I pick up every item that I pick up now in the grocery stores to see where it was grown. It may have been packaged in the U.S. or it may not be packaged, but it comes from our neighbors to the south and further down. And when we shop in our grocery stores, we need to be aware of that. It just doesn't appear. It's got to come from somewhere. And to meet and go through those farm countries, they've been blessed with an abundance of rain, a lot of rain. And it was even more beautiful than I had remembered it before.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, the trip was well worth the trip. I will tell you that Councilman Farmer is being modest today. She was very graceful. Her history in prior trips, I could tell she at times had more historical and more facts and figures than some of the folks that were on the trip. So she knew her stuff there, and so she was an excellent representative for the city of San Angelo. I will tell you that I really felt more proud of the work that San Angelo has done in terms of saving that short line railroad. I believe that short line railroad is going to play a major part of the West Texas and Klein Shell and energy industry expansion, as well as the opening up of that privatization of those oil fields in Mexico. So I see a lot of opportunity for Texas Pacifico and this rail line. Just an observation.
Roland is being gracious. It's always a pleasure to share our stats in San Angelo with our neighbors to the south. And any time that you have the opportunity to peacefully ignite relationships and form business relationships, it's an opportunity missed if you don't capitalize on it. So I'm open to any questions that you may have. Travel was quite simple. The delays or layovers that we had in Mexico City were really nothing when you think of the size of the airport and how long it takes to get from one gate to another. So any questions that you may have?
I have a question. You mentioned a firm in Kansas that wants to move here.
Mm-hmm.
What's the nature of their business?
At this time, because we are in public session and open, and I'm not for sure that they have made that public, Roland has the names of those companies, but at this time, I just think it's best not to disclose that to the public.
I know that tank cars are quite expensive. One of the reasons they're so expensive is because they're a hazmat car. And the maintenance of that car is estimated to be equal to the purchase price of the car.
Over the lifetime of the car.
That's right. And that's one problem we had here locally in San Angelo with the tank car works. They literally went out of the tank car business because of the fact that federal requirements are so stringent. So.
Yes, sir. One of our former council members had shared with me some information from OSHA and the requirements on the tank cars to make them legally operate in the United States. And I found the information refreshing, and in visiting with the folks with Texas Pacifico and looking at some of their safety records and stats, that they've got some of the newest cars out there. Now they connect with other rail lines, and of course they don't control over that, but there is, like you said, from OSHA and the federal government, there is quite a few strict guidelines for the safety, and we, of course, need to be on top of here in the city and making our inspections at our rail crossings. And I do know that Texas Pacifico is in the process of replacing several rail crossings to be safer and more modern.
That's mainly the FRA.
Right. So it's something that is up front and foremost to their minds and needs to be in our inspection department here at the city. And in answer to Tommy's question a little bit earlier, yes, I do believe we have a communication problem at the city, and it is something we are working on within departments. I know that's out of line, but I wanted to answer that. But it is something that we do as a city need to be aware of and trained up on and be able to look for.
Other questions? Well, Charlotte,
Thank you.
Well, I've got you there. We have our item number 3, which is presentation and update to the City Council appointing Charlotte Farmer to the Ports to Plains Advisory Board, replacing Mayor Morrison. I think that's a advisory, perhaps.
He's asked me to replace him on the board.
Okay.
Which I accepted. It's not a problem. I love the Port of Plains. I love what I think it brings to the city. And I am very much in support of council supporting you guys and what you do with the Port of Plains in your group. I accepted to accept it. I'll be accepting it October 6th or 7th down in Del Rio at the annual meeting to replace him as he moves on to another board, which I'm sure that you're aware of. And it's something that I have the time to do, and don't mind doing, and something that I willingly and wantingly bring back the information to share with each of you, the printed material as well as any verbal material that I can convey that is going on at the quarterly meetings, the board meetings, and keep you abreast of what the other states, the other 13 states are doing with the Port of Plains and what their current initiatives are at that current time. I don't have a problem appearing anytime that you guys want an update that's not a regular quarterly board report. All you got to do is let Roland know or let me know, and I will be here and be happy to bring the information. I did about, a month or so ago, gave Roland an entire cardboard box of all of my records and stuff that I had gathered in my time on Port of Plains as either a member of the Southern Work Group or the quarterly reports and stuff that I had in my possession that may have gotten lost somewhere in the city. And I'm more than happy to continue to do so and willing to look into just about anything that y'all would like for me to look at for your behalf, on your behalf.
All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
I can go back to making my baby blanket.
You may.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, that concludes our regular agenda. We do have an executive session. Executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open, Section 551.072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, Section 551.074A1, to deliberate the evaluation and duties of the Economic Development Director, Section 551.087, to discuss an offer of financial or other incentive to a company or companies with whom the City of San Angelo Development Corporation is conducting economic development negotiations in which the City of San Angelo Development Corporation seeks to have, locate, stay, or expand in the City of San Angelo. It is 9:17. We are in an executive session. Mike, I'm ready. There we go. All right, I'm back up. Okay, it is 10:01 and we are out of executive session. We do have nothing to report. Move on to follow-up and administrative items. Consideration of possible action regarding matters discussed in executive session. There is none. Announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? How about future? Oh,
I think we got an announcement.
Hi, Phil Neighbors. What was that? I missed that.
We got an announcement.
Yes. Well, I'm going to be spending the next 2 days here in this convention center, so I thought I would formally invite all of you to the Chamber's Business Expo, which takes place tomorrow to the public, 11 a.m. to about 6 p.m., a mixer, after hours, silent auction, but more than anything, the opportunity to network with existing businesses here. So you'll be most welcome to that, and we appreciate your continued support of all of our activities, but wanted to make you aware of that if you can drop by anytime.
Come one, come all. All right.
Thank you, Phil.
Yes, sir, Mr. Buck.
Well, I still got up here, I realized I could make one too. I've been working with Goodyear Test Proving Ground for the last 4 or 5 months. They're celebrating their 70th anniversary, so I'm just throwing that out as information. Their 70th anniversary this year. And they'll have a limited open house event come October 10th and 11th. And I'll just throw it out there. I'm the president of the Road Lizards Running Club, and we're doing a race that morning. And that's pretty much the only open event for all the public. The rest is going to be doing some events with their associates and their families.
Is it a race or a race?
However you get out there. I've been working with them. We've got real neat participation medals that will go out to everyone. Yeah, Tina's going to be running in DC, so she won't make it. But they'll have participation medals with their new logo, and they're buying the T-shirts, I'm buying the medals. And so it'll be a good event if the public would like to get out there and walk or run around the high-speed track.
Or drive.
No, they won't let you drive, sorry.
All right.
Will they be bringing their blimp this time?
No, that's what caused the delay. We had 2 dates for the blimp, but something came up, so no blimp.
Oh, shucky darn.
Oh, well.
But
All right.
I thought I'd throw that information out. 70 years they've been with us.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Future agenda items, board requests.
Yes, if we could put an item on the agenda. Ms. Farmer mentioned earlier about a good ambassador we were able to have as an invited guest to Mexico. And in general, I'd like to consider any future ambassador and how we should handle expenses, designation, things of that nature. Okay. And as a second agenda item, I would like to revisit the sports complex over there off of Bell Street. I have been approached by a couple of our licensed vendors here in San Angelo and have looked into it some, but I would like some official guidance. When we were required to put in the extension of Rio Concho Drive, that road sits on what appears on the GIS system to be still city land rather than a legal street. These street vendors are licensed to perform their sales on city streets. But the Parks Department, whom we've given the sports complex to basically, is prohibiting those street vendors from using the city street for public sales. And I would like legal definition of is that truly a city street or is it a park road? As well, I would really like to get a look at what our street vendors licensing looks like and what the verbiage is in that. Since we funded it, I think we need to be a party involved in ironing this out. As well, I'd like to see the Parks Department's contract, or whose ever contract, with the city concessionaire, who seems to aggressively defend that contract. And because there is conflict, I just think we need to iron that out and present something to council for their consideration to resolve any conflict if we deem it's there.
Question on, I guess, future agenda items. Roland, will we be getting all the contracts that we have that I'm assuming take effect October 1 for our review and input and ultimate approval for that new contract going forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Those contracts aren't ready.
Okay.
But I am trying to work through that, and you'll have those contracts before you for your input.
Okay, good, thanks.
Daniel, Tony?
Nope.
All right, I need a motion.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Thank you all.